a landmark deal, I'm sure, for this administration. Results starting to come. Can you just talk to me about how significant this actually is and whether the policy achievement you've got in the last 24 hours can address the trade deficit between the United States and South Korea?
Sure. The big picture here is this is an example of trade peace through negotiating strength. This is a deal which will provide tremendous stability, not just to the economic relationship with South Korea, but also to the national security relationship. So on just that alone, it succeeds. But let's think about the history involved here. The Korea deal is one of the three worst trade deals in trade history for America. The first worst is the China WTO deal. Second is NAFTA. But the Korea deal, pound for pound, it went into effect in 2012 at the behest of Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama. And we saw our trade deficit in goods double in just a few short years. And we didn't export a single additional dollar to speak of over the course of that. I mean, it was just so one-sided. We lost thousands of jobs, primarily in the auto and auto parts industry. So let's see who wins with this deal. Well, first of all, light trucks. Men and women who make light trucks in this country can breathe a sigh of relief because the light truck tax is going to continue into 2040. We have steel workers. We got a very good restrictive quota on steel, and Korea has been a bad actor in terms of sending us steel. So people in places like Granite City, Illinois, will be making more steel as a result of that. Pharmaceuticals, we got a great deal there with the innovative pharmaceuticals having better access. The markets in autos, of course, we're tearing down trade barriers in Korea, which is what the president wants to focus on. And then lastly, this is one of the first deals we've ever seen where we have a side agreement which deals with a horrible systemic problem of currency undervaluation around the globe. As you know, if a country undervalues its currency, it sends you more exports to us, we send fewer to them, and the trade balance.
Well, Peter, let's start with the trade issue first, and then we can move over to the currency.
Sure.
On the trade issue, the bulk of the deficit with South Korea is on autos, and I'm pretty
80%.
skeptical. Yeah, it's a lot, and I'm pretty
80%.
skeptical, and others are too, whether what's been agreed can actually really address that specific issue. And on steel, it's not exactly South Korea is the biggest steel exporter into the United States of America, so I'm questioning how much that moves the dial as well. Can you just address those two things, Peter?
So let's start. Yeah, let's start with the steel issue. There was a general misconception when the president announced that we would have a temporary period to May 1st in which we negotiate with some countries over whether they would have the tariffs. But it was always clearly understood among the negotiating team, primarily Ambassador Robert Lighthizer, that if we were to give any kind of tariff relief to a country or Europe or anybody else, there would be very strict quotas in place. Why? It's to preserve the national security aspect, which is paramount in terms of the Section 232 issue. So a 70% quota is a very good result for the American steel industry. There will still be 10% tariffs on the aluminum industry. So that's a really good deal. And you may say that Korea is not the biggest country that exports steel to this country, but part of that reason is there's just a lot of dumping cases that have already put on them. So this is really important, and it's like pattern bargaining in the auto industry. This will set the stage and make clear that anybody else will also be subject to these quotas. So this is a good day for the American steel industry.
Peter, just given that we're limited on time and I want to squeeze as much as I can in, the deal around currencies, away from South Korea, can you achieve these kind of things with Europe? Can you do the same kind of thing with Europe and, say, Japan as well?
In terms of negotiating additional deals, here's the big picture. With Europe, we have a $150 billion trade deficit in goods annually, and at the rate of $1 billion per 6,000 jobs, that means that Europe benefits by over 1 million jobs because of that trade surplus. So I think there's plenty of negotiating room for the U.S. to get a much better deal.
But Peter, just specifically on the currency,
partners.
Can you achieve something on the currency issue like you have done with South Korea?
One would hope that we would have a global agreement on currency, because this really is the scourge of the international financial system, and we will be pressing that. But think about this. This is the vision and innovation of Donald Trump as president. He is bringing that into the discussion, and he ran in 2016 on issues like currency manipulation, and he's actually doing what he said he was going to do. What a surprise here in the swamp.
So, Peter, here's a big question for the markets then, and for our viewers. Are you going to have the same or plan for an accord, a global accord on currencies? Is that what the president's going to push for next around this trade issue?
No, you're getting way ahead of your skis on
that.
Well,
you're taking me there, Peter, so I'm asking a question.
No, I'm not taking you there. All I've said is we've got an innovative, historic side agreement with Korea that the Treasury Secretary is going to finally negotiate, and that the president is keenly aware that currency undervaluations damage the international trading system, and you and I would surely agree on that.
Peter, this market right now is on edge and has been over the last couple of weeks. There's a range of issues. One of them is trade, and the market now bracing for the United States and the plans that will be unveiled on the products that these tariffs will hit from the U.S. Can you put the market at ease a little bit and give us an idea of what's coming?
There's no question. I mean, look, markets go up on earnings growth, and the president has put in place a visionary plan to drive economic growth, tax cuts, deregulation, cheap energy, and yes, rebalancing our trade. And today, the market should be extremely reassured by the fact that this president has been able to negotiate trade peace in a deal with the Koreans that basically strengthen both the economic and national security relationship. I mean, you can't get much better than that.
No, Peter,
I think you can. They can't be comforted by
I think for
anything.
the market, what they're really looking forward is trade peace with China and not South Korea. Can we achieve the same thing with the Chinese, Peter?
I think for the international stability of the trading system, it's critical that China stop stealing intellectual property, not only from America, but from the rest of the world. And they end this pernicious practice. If a European or an American company wants to go to China to sell into that market, guess what? It's a minority joint venture and a surrender of their technology. That doesn't work for long-term corporate growth and earnings. And so all the president is doing, all President Trump is doing, is asking for fair and reciprocal trade, free trade, fair and reciprocal, so that we can have stability in this international trading system. Right now, we have massive trade imbalances driven by unfair and non-reciprocal trade, and he's going to change that.
So, Peter, I'm going to ask you a final question. I hope you answer it. Otherwise, my producer's going to shout at me, and I'm sure your PR is going to try and pull you off the camera. Let's try and go there. The Chinese, the United States, are going to unveil those tariffs on the Chinese products, and I want to understand which products. Is it high-tech goods? Is that what I can expect in the coming days?
Certainly the focus of the tariffs are on what's called the China 2025 industries. China, in my view, brazenly has released this China 2025 plan, and they basically told the rest of the world, we're going to dominate every single emerging industry of the future, and therefore your economies aren't going to have any future. It's artificial intelligence, robotics, quantum computing. It's all those things. And the Section 301, which is on intellectual property theft and forced transfer, is specifically designed to address those kinds of things. And I think the world should welcome that. Europe is getting hammered by the same thing. Japan's getting hammered by the same thing. And all we're trying to do is have trade peace where we can have a regular free market system where we don't have to worry about things like that.